Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the AI perception system. In the last video, we used the pawn sensing component here. And this actually isn't what I wanted to use. I was a little confused too because it didn't look like what I was used to. It worked for what we did, but there is a much better system out there. So we're going to go here and we're going to dump this on C pawn sensing here, and then we're going to dump that. And we want to add the AI perception. This is a newer and much better, much more flexible system. So we definitely want to leverage that. So I'm adding this on target perception updated. That's going to replace what we had before. We'll get back to this in a second, but we got to do our initial setup. So this system allows us to configure different senses. And with some C++, you can create more. As you can see, there's a few in here. I have only used the sight and the hearing. My guess is the damage one requires you to use Epic's damage system, which I've never used, so that's problematic. I don't know what this prediction sense is. Be interesting. I'll take a look at the code sometime. I haven't looked at team or touch as well. Sometimes ones they have here are in usable states. Sometimes they're just a placeholder for you to add more C++ code to expand it. But we're going to use the sight and we're going to use the hearing because today we're going to add an additional hearing sense to our AI. Okay, so we've got some settings here. We can set the sight radius. We can set when they lose sight. So you can see there's like a 500 centimeters there. We want to come into this detection by affiliation. We haven't set up any affiliation, so nothing's going to count as enemies. So we're just going to go in here and set detect all. And for max age, this is how long it remembers it. So the cool thing about this AI perception is it actually keeps a list of all perceived pawns, which is pretty cool. In the game I'm working on, we use this as a way, we don't have a threat system, and so we use it as a way that the mob AI can actually constantly be looking at everyone it perceives and try to figure out who it should be attacking. So you can do things like, oh, I see a healer casting, and the mob could run over and try to interrupt them, right? You could see a weak player, right, and try to focus on the weak player. So you could do a lot of things there to make your AI feel, more human-like and less like some of the dumb stuff we see in most MMOs. I'm not going to name names. We're just going to start with 10 seconds. It'll hold it in. 10 seconds is how long it'll remember. Basically, it's memory after it stops seeing it. And for our hearing here, we'll go with the same range, 3,000. So this one here, where is it? Yeah. So this is how far the AI can see in degrees. It's a peripheral vision angle. But it is a half. If you look here, it's a half angle. So that's basically 180 degrees at 90. We could go look at our Rampage's eyes. Try to get an idea of what we think. They're on the side of his head. He's probably got even better than 180. So we'll leave it there. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. You can go in and depending on your mobs and stuff, you can change these angles so that they have a narrower, wider field of view. So you can do some fun stuff there. We'll just leave the default. And on the hearing here, we'll do the same thing, 10 seconds. And we'll set the dominant sense to sight. Okay, so we've now set that up. And we come back over here. This is going to get called each time that we perceive a target. And so you can break this stimulus and get access to some fun stuff here. So I'm going to move this up here. Move this down. We need some more room. Okay. So we've got some fun stuff here. We can see the location of the stimulus, the age, the strength. So there's some interesting things we can do. One of the things that I've always thought's weird, though, is the stimulus type is not listed here. I have no idea why it's not. This is obviously a mistake in my opinion, but there is a function to get that, and it's get sense class for stimulus. So this one's going to let us figure out, well, was this hearing? Was this sight? What was this? And so this will let us get it, and then we'll basically be able to branch off this. So we can say, okay, was this AI sense sight? Make sure you don't use the config one. And we can branch off this. And so sight was what we had before. So we could basically just end up calling this code. And we should end up with the same thing we had before. Okay, let's see what we got here. We got to hook up some objects, though. Actor, there we go. That gets the controller. I actually want to clean this up here. So, casting like this, a pure cast basically, is not that expensive. However, it is a good idea to cache your values. So, mob AI controller. And we're going to basically grab this reference, store it, and not have to keep casting it every time. Is it going to make a difference in our frames per second? Probably not, but it's a good practice. I want to set it. Yeah. Okay, so now anytime the possession changes, we'll cache the controller, and it'll look a little bit cleaner down here. Okay, let's see if this is still the case, that our mob sees us. Oh, I was testing some stuff with two of them. Oh, look, it's gone for that one. So apparently he did see us. Let's go here and switch it back to 1. We'll take a look at that error in a second. So let's see, does he see us? Yeah, he goes after them. Okay, they've got to go too. And let's take a look at this. Okay, probably a timing issue. Anytime you got a reference, make sure it's valid. I think what happens is that it's able to call this before it calls that, and so it's null, and therefore it hits the set target. There's that warning. Doesn't actually hurt anything, but is valid is the right way to handle that. Okay, so he's over there. See if we can get in front of him, and if he sees us. He sees us, right? So obviously that would not have happened if he hadn't seen us. So I would say that good. It is working. So that's going to be for sight. And now let's grab off here. And let's see. AI sense. Ooh, if I could spell correctly. Hearing. Okay, so now we're going to another branch node. I was kind of disappointed you couldn't do a switch off class, but blueprints don't let you do everything that you can do in C++, unfortunately. Okay, so here we're going to say for hearing, We want to again check if this is valid. Let's pull this down. And we need to go to our AI controller. And we're going to want to add a way to set a new value here. So we're going to right click, custom event, and this is going to be set heard noise location. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add something to our AI that if they hear a noise in a location, it doesn't mean they know as a target where I am, right? So they don't come chasing me necessarily. But if they hear a noise in a location, they're going to go run to that location and look around. Now, if in the course of doing that they see me, then they're going to switch to target and they're going to run at me. But it's kind of fun. It stops you from being able to sneak up behind a player. You can do a lot of cool stuff too. We're going to modify it so that our walking triggers the noises that it can hear. And one of the fun things we do in our game is that the kind of boots you're wearing and the speed at which you're moving decide how loud it is. So you can have the whole idea of sneaking and stuff. So there's a lot of fun stuff you can do here. Okay, so we're going to do Blackboard. We want this one. And we're going to... We haven't created this yet, but we will. And we're going to make a literal. And this one that we're going to create is going to be heard noise location. And so we only want to set it. We don't want to keep resetting it every time, right? Once it's heard a location and it starts going to that location, if it hears another location, the other location, it's too focused on that one, right? Otherwise it would just sit there bouncing around constantly, potentially, and doing nothing. So what we want to do is we want to say, hey, only if it's not set, then we want to, from this Blackboard, set value as vector. So we're going to come from the false because we only want if it's not set. And we'll create a thing to clear it later. And we're going to, this here is going to have a value we can pass in. Vector heard noise location. It's going to set this, and this key value also goes here, right? So now we've got that too. And while we're in here, because we're going to need this later, custom event dead, and we are going to brain component stop logic. So we're going to say, hey, if this thing dies, stop running the AI so it costs us less CPU. I don't know what that reason does. And then let's say, okay, you know what? After 10 seconds, you can set this whatever you want. After 10 seconds, we're going to despawn the dead body. So we're going to unpossess, and then we're going to grab the mob and destroy mob, and then we're going to call destroy on ourselves. Okay, we'll use that later. Just going to add it while we're in here. Okay, so now let's go over to our behavior tree and our Blackboard. And remember, it's a vector, and it's heard noise location. Okay, so that's now being set, and we're going to come back to our mob, and we're going to set heard noise location if it's valid. And that is going to come from stimulus location in this what we broke, right? So that's wherever it heard something at. Okay? And we'll grab these, and we'll hit the C key, and we'll say hearing. Probably should put that in there as well, but whatever. Okay, so right now this is not going to work because we're not making any noise. So what we want to do is we want to come over to our, let's see here. We want to, first we got to go add some notifies. So we're not going to add all of them here. I'm only going to make it work on walking forward, and you guys can add the others on your own. So we're going to come into our animations, find the jog, and we're going to find forward, and we're going to create some notifies. So we're going to come down here. We're watching the feet. We're going to go till it looks like probably right about there maybe. And we're going to add notify. And this is going to be the right foot. So right foot down. And go to the next one here. And add notify. Left foot down. And now we've already got them here, so we can pick them. So left foot down. And back to right foot down. And left foot down. Okay, so those are going to fire. You can go through all the other animations that we had that had movement, and you can add those notifies. Right now it's only going to work for moving forward, which is going to be fine for this test. Okay, so now I want to go into the, clear that filter, into the animation BB, and we're going to go over to the event graph, and we'll come over here and create our notifies, and we've got left foot down and right foot down. Okay, so these are both going to be able to call the same thing. We're going to have to grab this value here, and we're going to have to cast to our base character. Let's see here. Okay, we're going to have to go add a noise. So let's go back to our base character. And we'll go to the full blueprint editor, and we're going to add an event. And we will do a custom event, and we will call it make foot down AI noise. Okay, and what we'll do here is we'll get the actor location. We need to go over here and add a pawn noise emitter. Pull that out. Make noise. So this is going to make a noise that the AI can hear that can get picked up by that AI perception system. Okay, here's where you can control the loudness. So this would be a great spot to calculate the speed, maybe what kind of armor or boots they're wearing, whatever the things are that may make walking louder or quieter. I'm just going to set it to 1 here. And we're going to send in a self reference for the noise maker. Okay, and we're going to come back over to the NMBP, make foot down noise. Here we go. Okay, so now when it hits those notifies, it's going to call that. And it only runs on server, so I'll show you something I like to do. Wait, off. Hold on, wrong spot. So just as a note for me, I like to go in and anytime I have anything here on the character, it's easy to see what runs on server and what runs on client. Now this here's telling you it only runs on server anyway, so this is completely pointless. It has no effect. However, it's a great way to quickly look at a node and say, ah, that's on server or that's on remote. So that's something I like to do, especially in the character. It's an easy way to keep track of what runs where because it gets complicated fast in multiplayer games. Okay, so that should now make it to where we're making a noise and we're hearing it. So let's test that. We're going to come back over to the mob. We're just going to add a print string here. Because of how poorly breakpoints work in with dedicated server checked, print strings are your friend. It's sad. Sad that it's 2018 and we're still using print string, but okay. So we're going to say I heard something. Let's see if it gets there. Also, we're going to temporarily disable the sight, just because otherwise that's going to get in the way. It might be hard to sneak up behind him before he sees us. So, should make it a little bit easier. And let's take a look. See if we can get him to say, I heard something. So he can't see us right now because he has no... Okay, so... Yeah, it might seem like he was coming after us. He wasn't. That's just the point. He does not hear us. He does not hear. So now I gotta kind of see why. Okay. So let's take a look at, make sure we didn't make any mistakes. He's checking the sight. If it's not sight, he's checking if it's hearing. And he's setting the noise, heard noise location, and printing a string. So let's go here. It's hearing range. And okay, so it probably means that there's an issue with us creating the noise. Put down AI noise. It's firing here from these anim notifies. And you can actually see it's kind of cool. It shows you that it would be firing here. So it's kind of neat. It's fun to actually use this preview editor to be able to test all of it, unit test it separately. But I hadn't noticed before that it actually fires the notifies, which is pretty cool. Let's see here. So I'm guessing these are getting called, but it's always good to confirm it. So let's come into our base character, which our third person character with abilities is inheriting from. And we're going to say print string. I made a noise. Let's see if that fires. Okay, cool. So that's a good sign there. It is definitely getting there and firing. So we're pretty happy about that. See if there's any settings on this thing. I don't think there is. Oh. There's something I think we missed. Let's come back over to our mob, AI perception. Look at this. So it never counted because it was, I'm pretty sure we start as a neutral. And so we don't have anything saying what's an enemy or not. So now let's see if he gets to I heard something. Yep, see, he heard something. Perfect. Awesome. So we're setting that blackboard key. We can disconnect that for now. I often leave print strings around to come back and fix things later. Most of programming is troubleshooting. Okay, so now I got to go in here. We got that heard noise location. And now it's time for us to do something with it. So we're going to pull off a new sequence. And we're going to say, okay, we want to add a decorator blackboard. And we're interested in when heard noise location is set. Okay? But at the same time, we also want it to exit out the target as soon as it sees it. So we need to add another one, blackboard, and we need to say, okay, but you know, if you do get a target and you set a target, which we're going to do not set means it runs this, and we're going to observe or abort on both. So I'll get it to jump out and go to that other part of the tree. We also have to come over into this one. This does get ugly. There's better ways to do this. We'll look at some later, but we're trying to stay simple here. So we actually now have to come in here and say, okay, if this condition is that you heard something, then you want to exit out. So we got to come in here and say heard noise location is not set. Otherwise, exit out instantly. And we also have to come and do the same thing here. Otherwise, it'll wait until it gets to the end, which is not ideal. If he hears something, you want him to move right away. So this one will come in here as well, and we'll say heard noise location is not set. Otherwise, get out. Okay, so what we want him to do is that when he hears something, we want him to move to that location, which is the heard noise location. And then we'll have him go idle and look around for, say, 5 seconds. Later, when we add some kind of look around type of animation or something, we could have him call that. Okay, now here what we want to do is when we're done, we want to actually clear the blackboard entry. But we don't have a task for that yet. I cannot believe that there is not a built-in task to do that, considering that it's one of the things that I call most. So we will build one, and this is going to be reused a ton. Blueprint class, BT task, blueprint base. BT task, clear blackboard entry. And as always, receive execute, finish execute, success. You're going to need a key, entry to clear, key selector. Grab this. It's going to be a real simple one. Clear blackboard value. Being able to build these tasks is really powerful. And later I'll show you how to build services, which are also really powerful because they can run, services can run on these nodes here and gather information periodically, which is kind of cool. So BT task, clear blackboard entry. So it says, hey, after I've moved to it, the heard noise location, I've waited. I'm now going to clear it so that I get out of this. And so we're going to go to this one up. If you don't see it here, it's because we didn't make it public. Let's go do that. And Now we have it here. Heard noise location, it'll clear it. Now that we have this, this actually was not ideal. I'd rather it kick back over here and get it again than have this in two places. So I'm actually going to go here and change this to what I would have liked to do the first time, which was to clear the move to point. So once it's cleared, it'll get out of this, jump back over to this. Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, see that? He heard us and ran to that location. And he just sits there for 5 seconds. And one of the things that I like to do on the second screen is sit here and watch what he's doing. So we can actually watch this happen. So watch, as soon as he hears us, look at that. You see, he went to it. Now remember, we have sight turned off. Otherwise, as soon as he turned around, he would have seen us and gone into the last mode. But you can see it running. So it is working as intended. And let's go back to the mob. And let's turn sight back on. Okay. So now we're behind him. See, he flipped. And now he's actually seen us. The sight kicked in. So the first thing that happened is that he heard us behind him. He turned around to go over to that point, and then he saw us. So it's pretty cool. You could add that make noise on a lot of other things too. Like we could add it to the light grenade, right? So you could have some fun throwing attacks over, like you could be hiding behind a tree or something where he couldn't see you. And you could throw your light grenade out to get him to like go to a certain, location, like so you can slip by. So, you can start creating some fun, roguelike type mechanics where, you could throw something and then the AI would go, over to the noise it heard and you could slip by the other direction quietly, So we could create some kind of mode where we move slower and kind of sneak, and then we take that, we take the over here on base character, we take this loudness and we make it lower because we're moving slower. We can do some fun stuff with that. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with this AI perception system. And we'll take a look at it, some of the other stuff that we can do later. And then we still need to make it so that we still need to take functionality from our third-person character with abilities and move it into our base character for things like death mechanics and a few other shared items, because right now our mob does not have, you see, he does not have the health bar and he's not taking any damage even though he's getting hit. So that's what we're going to take a look at in the next video. But for AI perception, we're going to stop here. Till next time.